When I talk to the women who sit across from me on the She Built It podcast and the women in my own circle, there's something unmistakable about them. Today, we're talking about the 5 steps that make them unstoppable. They're not chasing success from the sidelines. They're building empires. They're transforming industries, and they're quadrupling revenue year over year. They're having 7-figure months while many are still trying to stabilize their first 6 figures. And what's striking is that they don't all look the same on paper. They're in different industries, different stages of life, and have different paths to where they are now. But the way that they think, that's where the similarities show up every single time. Over the years of She Built It interviews, patterns have become impossible to ignore. And in this episode, I'm highlighting the mindset traits I see consistently in women who don't just build businesses, but build something that lasts. The women I interview and work alongside have a level of hunger that's hard to explain unless you've experienced it. It's not frantic, it's not loud, it's steady and unwavering. You could take everything away, the business, the foundation, and they would be building it again the next morning. Not because they enjoy starting over, but because quitting is never an option they consider. And here's why that matters. This hunger is not driven by money alone. Money is a metric, not the mission. Women are hungry for impact, for change, for creating something that matters beyond them. They care deeply about the work they're doing and the people it serves. When hunger is connected to purpose, it doesn't burn out, it sharpens. They're competitive too, but not in a way that you might assume. They're not obsessing over what others in their industry are doing. They're competing with themselves, asking themselves how they can lead better, build smarter, and become the next version of who the business requires them to be. That mindset naturally leads to the second trait I see over and over again: radical responsibility. The most successful women I know take ownership of everything in their business, not in a self-critical way, but in a deeply empowered way. They don't waste energy blaming the market, their team, or timing. They look inward first. They ask where communication could have been clearer, their leadership could have been stronger, where systems could have better supported outcomes. Every day they take responsibility for the results they're creating, and when you do that, excuses disappear. This is especially powerful in a world where women still receive a fraction of the funding, visibility, and institutional support. The women in my circle don't wait for the system to change. They build anyway, they adjust anyway, and they lead anyway. Radical responsibility gives you agency, and agency changes everything. The third thing I see consistently is high standards. This is where things get misunderstood. You can be deeply compassionate, heart-centered, and mission-driven while also having unwavering standards. Those things are not in conflict. Women building at this level do not tolerate mediocrity from themselves or their teams. They've had to unlearn people-pleasing. They've learned that clarity is kinder than avoidance, and that boundaries protect what matters most: our friends, our family, and our health. They understand that when you're building something bigger than yourself, protecting your time, energy, and resources is not optional. It's leadership. This is one of the reasons female-founded companies often perform so well over time. They're not driven by ego. They're driven by excellence. The fourth trait is one that requires courage: calculated risk-taking. The women I'm talking about don't wait until everything feels comfortable. They make decisions before certainty arrives. While others are still thinking about the first move, they've already attempted number 4. They've stumbled, they've recalibrated, they've learned, and they've moved again. They don't take risks recklessly. They build strong mentorship networks. They surround themselves with women who think big and challenge them to stretch. They know that you don't build something extraordinary in isolation. And that brings me to my 5th trait, and one that everything else rests on: self-trust. The women in my circle have done bold things in their businesses. Of course, fear shows up. Of course, nerves are part of the process. But underneath it all is a deep and steady knowing: I'll figure this out. They don't operate in a win or fail mindset. They operate in a win or learn mentality. Everything is feedback. Everything is data. Everything moves them forward. And that self-trust fuels everything else. It allows hunger to stay rooted in purpose. It makes responsibility empowering instead of heavy. It supports high standards without apology. It makes risk feel intentional instead of reckless. These traits are not innate. They're built. I've watched women transform in real time. I've seen hesitant founders become confident leaders. I've seen women release people-pleasing and step into full authority. I've seen businesses scale because the founder evolved first. Building something extraordinary doesn't start with a better strategy. It starts with how you think. And when you embody hunger, responsibility, high standards, courage, self-trust, you don't just change your business, you change how you lead. you change how you live, and you change the lives that your work touches. That's what I see with women in my podcast, and that's what I see with women in my circle, and that is what I believe is possible for you. I'll see you next week.